Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Tuesday morning, November the 9th. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and chat room is open there, and I did pop the link in there to the article that we were looking at yesterday morning, as well as all last week and probably the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe. And this is a great website for people who may be kind of thinking, well, I have some anger issues. I don't know really how to handle my anger, or maybe just stuffing anger. So many people do. I think that a lot of people really don't know how to properly manage their anger, and that's why we see so many issues of like road rage and things like this, and the terms people going postal and things like that. I mean, I think people throughout history and throughout time and all over the world have problems with anger management. And I know myself I did, so that's kind of why I wanted to look at this. So yeah, I hope everybody's getting something out of it too. And he's talking a lot about the whole issues of anger management and domestic violence, domestic abuse, and abuse towards your families and children and whatnot, because it's a huge issue, especially it has always been a huge issue. I don't think it's any different today than it was many years ago. I think people have always taken their anger out and lashed out at the people that they love, or that they think they love, out of anger, not knowing how to properly handle things. So that's why I think it's important everybody take a look at this. And this is from www.angerresources.com, ANGEROURCES.com, and that's Dave Decker and Michael Obsatz. They're both the therapists and counselors in that field, in that area, and you can check out their piece on their website about themselves and what they do. And really, they have a lot of articles there. There's just tons and tons of information, resources, books, videos. You can contact them if you have questions. Just some great information. I hope that you will go check it out. And so that's what we're talk about again today. And I'm not a counselor or therapist. I don't hold any certificates in those areas. I always make sure that I say this on every show, because it's important that people know I'm just a private citizen paying to do my own blog talk shows. And I'm a survivor of child abuse, and I just wanted to be one more voice with everybody else out here who's really just speaking out against abuse, breaking the silence, breaking the chains. So many people have suffered and been abused in their lifetimes, whether it's domestic violence and abuse or child abuse or whatever it is. And it's really sad. I just want to be to think that people live in silence and live in this sorrow, just can't tell anybody, and they're just stuck in this mess, and that's where I was about 3.5 years ago. And so I had opened up and told a few people, but I had never really dealt with my issues as a survivor. I always looked at myself as a victim, so I was not able to heal. And so about 3.5 years ago, I started to look at myself as a survivor and started to learn how to live. And so that's what the issue is. It's only been recent for me, and so I'm just the one person out here trying to be another voice for other people, so they know they're not alone, and just keep looking for that help where you can find it. I'm not a professional counselor or therapist, and you have to listen at your own discretion to all my shows. I cover everything regarding abuse, and I don't sugarcoat it, and I don't believe in minimizing abuse, because I lived it, I experienced it. A lot of people in my family thought it could be no big deal, that my mom would crack my head open with a rolling pin and beat on me till I was senseless and nearly passing out, and being sexually abused in my home as well by a sibling. A lot of people would think that's no big deal, and they just minimize it, right? Well, I'm not minimizing it, and it's something. I don't think that we can minimize abuse anymore, right? The whole issue is people are getting hurt, and children are getting hurt, adults are getting hurt, and in these domestic violence, domestic abuse, child abuse situations, right? So that's why my shows are pretty sensitive. So you have to listen at your own discretion when you're listening to my show, because the topics are very sensitive. Abuse, a lot of people don't know a whole lot about abuse, and if they do, they may be survivors, and they may, this type of information and show could trigger somebody. So you really have to know what's good for you to listen to, know what your frame of mind is that day, and make sure it's something that you can listen to safely, that you won't hurt yourself or somebody else, right? Because the topics are very sensitive. So just so everybody knows, you have to listen at your own discretion. And young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have someone listen to the show with you who's older, an adult who can help you make the decision whether you should be listening or not. There's a lot of adult content on my shows, and I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and we're fighting to protect children's rights. Really, we believe that children should be protected at all times. And so if you're listening to my show and you're under the age of 18, I ask that you have permission to listen to my show from an adult, and have them listen to the show with you if you want to tune in, to make sure that it is something that you should be listening to, right? It's just so important to keep yourself safe online, right, at all times. So we'll get right into this article. And yesterday we left off talking about the emotional abuse that Dave Decker was talking about, and he was going through some of the examples of what, emotional abuse really is, and the verbal abuse, right? And that's where we left off. We were talking about the verbal abuse, emotional abuse, right? And he's mainly talking about men in this sense being the abuser in this article. But, he says that, of course, women can be abusers too, and we all know this. But the thing is there's more women abused in domestic violence situations, or more women that come forward who have been abused, having to use the shelters, having to go to the safe houses, right, than there are men. But there are some men who are abused as well in their relationships, and there's not a whole lot of places for them to go as far as support goes. But they know by the numbers, just by going by the reports and the studies of the numbers, there's more women being abused than men. But so Dave Decker is specifically speaking to men in this article about what, and let's say it's a man abusing a woman, right? But I myself look at it differently, because my mom was my main abuser. But my dad was also very abusive, and my parents were both abusive towards each other, right? It wasn't just my dad abusing my mom, or only my mom abusing my dad, right? It was a situation where both of my parents were very abusive towards each other. They had a very volatile, mix when they were in the same room together, and they carried that on to us, right? So they just the violence was just, they were just violent people, right? So everybody lives like that. Sometimes it's the husband or the dad who will be abusing the wife or girlfriend, whatever. And, about the whole issue of men abusing women, right? And in this article, so when we're looking at this, he's talking about her, and putting her down, and because I saw my parents fighting, and my mom really, she was pretty vicious, but she was really mainly trying to protect herself, and actually couldn't stand it anymore. So she actually started to abuse my dad too, because she thought, hey, I'm not going to let him get the best of me, right? So that was the issue. And she was abused as a child, so she was treated very violently her whole life, and I think she just got tired of it, And also it was learned behavior, right? So there was many reasons for it. I think there was many reasons for it. But we left off at the section really verbal abuse. Well, just the last two that he was talking about was insulting, ridiculing, or belittling others that she cares about. Like, for instance, putting down her parents, saying, your mother's always trying to come between us, calling her women friends losers, and names and stuff like that, referring to her male friends, if this is a man abusing his girlfriend or his wife or his partner, saying if she has any male friends that they're her boyfriends or her lover, right, this type of thing. Being demanding, pressuring her verbally to do what you want her to do and be who you want her to be, right? So being demanding. So that's where we kind of left off yesterday. And the next section was section number 4, and it's threats, right? Non-physical threats is what he talks about first here. And he says threats, non-physical threats, communicating either directly or indirectly an intention to do something that is designed to create emotional distress, fear, indecision, and insecurity in her, which then increases your ability to control your partner. So this includes threatening to, for instance, withdraw affection or refuse to talk to her. These are non-physical threats, right? So these would not be the physical threats. This is non-physical. Expose personal things that she has told you to others. For instance, wait till I tell your parents what you said about them, and this type of thing. File assault charges or get a restraining order against her. Another thing is they do is take the children or keep them from her if she leaves the relationship. This is a threat, right? They'll say, and actually some people follow through with it, but this is just a non-physical threat. They'll say, if you don't stay with me, you'll never see the kids again, and if you ever try to leave me, I'll go for full custody of the kids, so you won't be able to be around them. This is things that people threaten their partner with, right? Withholding money from her. They'll threaten to throw her out on the street or abandon her. This is all threats, right? They'll threaten to go out or be sexual with other women. Threaten to sue the partner's family, friends, counselor for ruining or interfering with your relationship. They'll threaten to end the relationship, separate, or divorce, right? And violent threats he's talking about here, communicating either directly or indirectly an intention to do violence or physical harm to your partner, your children, other family members, relatives, friends, pets, yourself, or property, right? This would be violent threats, and that's standing in her way, blocking her, cornering her to keep her somewhere, for instance, inviting a physical confrontation, right? And throwing objects in her direction or at her, hitting walls or slamming your fist on surfaces such as countertops or tables. So this becomes even more frightening when you refuse to repair the damage that you've done in the home if you're the abuser, right? Making threats to hurt the family pets, right? I mean, this is horrible. This is how I grew up, right? You know, my parents were very much violent people, and they were violent towards us as well. So we, nobody was safe in our home. I mean, it was kind of like, you just took your chances, right? I mean, it might be a good day for you or it might not be. It was kind of, you never really knew. So you might have a few good days in a row and then, or maybe even a week or so in a row, and then all of a sudden the crap would hit the fan again and somebody would be after somebody for some reason, actually for no reason. But it's just a sort of a bad scene. And I know what it's like to be, blocked and cornered and I know what it's like to see my mom in that situation, and throwing objects at her. My mom was actually quite often throwing objects at my dad, right? But my dad was throwing things at my mother too, right? Hitting walls, slamming fists on surfaces such as countertops or tables. That was just the norm in my home. And people would be slamming people's heads into walls. My mom was quite often slamming my head into walls. My dad actually did that a couple times. But and the same with my brothers. There was 5 siblings in the home when I was young, and there was a lot of abuse at that time. And then as time went on, a lot of the siblings left, and one got killed, and then the others moved out, and it was just me in the home, and they were still doing that, And they were very violent, vicious people, and they taught us how to be like that, right? So then I carried a lot of this stuff into my own life with my own boyfriend, my partner, and throwing things, slamming kitchen doors, slamming cupboard doors, getting violent, just getting really violent. And I knew how to do that really well because my parents taught me how to do that, right? So my partner didn't like it, and he was like, this is horrible. And we actually had to break up, for a while because of it, so I could get myself straightened out. And I had a lot of work to do. But the thing is it's a hard way to be. It's a hard way to grow up, and it's really hard to be around people like that because you never know if they're going to throw something at you or become violent, right? Making threats to hurt the family pets. Making vague statements such as you're really asking for it this time, or go ahead, keep it up and see what happens, or remember the last time you got me, mad at you, pissed off, right? And things like that. Those are physical threats, right? Making physical, intimidating gestures such as holding up a clenched fist in front of her face, or raising your arm as if you were going to hit her. And, that's exactly how we grew up. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was like, I don't know where these people came from. I know exactly where my parents came from, but I thought, what is this? They were just so horrible. You know what I mean? They brought us up in this this hellhole, this fear, this place of fear, right? Threats and verbal threats, and physically, verbal threats. Always. My mom was always holding up her arm like she was going to hit me. That was just something that she did all the time, and it's just sad that people did not, people actually would encourage her to hit me. People in the family, like my older siblings, they'd be like, yeah, you should just give it to her. She's a brat. And my mom just, she would sometimes follow through with it and sometimes not. But the thing is that was just the norm for me. So I was always flinching, she had me kind of, I want to say gun shy. You know what I mean? It was a steady state of, knowing that, at any time she really could hit me, and because she was quite often hitting me. So it was, when she raised her arm, it was a serious thing because it wasn't like it was just only a threat, And so I think that's what happens with people when they abuse people. All they have to do is hurt you a couple of times pretty bad or really bad. And then the next time they do gesture at you, the fear behind that, so they try to control you with that, right? And that's what happens with children too. And a lot of parents just, they think it's discipline, right? But it's abuse, right? And my mom was abused as a child, and really she knew what she was doing. She didn't like the abuse that she suffered at the hands of her mother, and would often talk about the fact that she tried to help her siblings. So she would take the beatings from her mother, right, my grandmother, because she didn't want her younger siblings to be abused, right? So she would get my grandmother to take it out on her. And the thing is like, you think that would have been enough for her to not want to hurt her children, right? But that was not the case. And so, she would quite often lash out and kick me around and beat on me and really hurt me. So that's absolutely horrible, that people can't, for whatever reason, see what they're doing and realize that it's wrong. And this is my parents knew it was wrong to treat each other like they did as well, but they went ahead and did it anyway because they were just such hateful people, and they didn't want to get any help, and they were ordered to court-ordered counseling, and they were brought up on child abuse charges and everything else, and they just lived this life that they knew. They didn't know any other life. They didn't want any other life. And I think so often, we see this out here. People who live and grow up in these domestic violence situations and child abuse situations, many times the abuser doesn't want to change. They like what they're doing. My parents liked what they were doing. They did not want to get help. My mom had every opportunity to leave. My dad could have left. They had every opportunity to leave, and they stayed in this mess and created this hell for us. And my mom had every opportunity to not hurt me, to not make verbal, to not verbally abuse me, emotionally abuse me, psychologically abuse me, physically abuse me. She had every opportunity to not do that, and she would do it at every opportunity that she had. So she would use, I wouldn't have to do anything wrong, and she would just use me as like a punching bag, right? So that's the thing, right? Parents, can be like that, and it's absolutely horrific. And I know lots of people that have survived that and worse. So, it's not something we can't minimize it anymore. You know what I mean? This is absolutely horrible when somebody's in your face with their fist, saying, keep it up, I'll hurt you. Remember what happened last time. And I grew up like that. You know what I mean? And my mom was quite often threatening to kill me, right? So she was kind of like, I should have killed you in the past tense, or I should kill you for the now and the present, and I'm going to kill you. That's for the future, right? She was always threatening to kill me, and many times when I was about 10 years old, from 10 years old on, I used to tell her, just go ahead and kill me. I don't care. What's the difference? You've already killed me, so go ahead. I really felt that my spirit had been killed, my whole soul, myself, right? I had been killed and murdered by her at the age of 10 years old. So that's the whole thing. She did kill me, right? I was just like, well, you haven't physically killed me, but you can go ahead and do that because you killed every other part of me, right? So that was my thing. And at 10 years old, a child shouldn't know about that stuff. A child shouldn't be feeling like that, and a child should not be treated like that, But I know so many children are, right? I knew so many growing up, right? So that's the whole issue. That's bad. But, parents shouldn't be doing that to each other either. That's absolutely ridiculous. And my parents were always threatening each other and continually threatening to kill each other, while they slept and other things. I'll kill you when you're sleeping, or, you touch me again and I'll kill you, and always hitting each other with, that's the actual physical stuff. But this right here is just the threats, right? And, excuse me, the threats are a big enough problem, They said here, the next one that they talk about, that Dave Decker talks about, is making statements about pushing, grabbing, or hitting her, right? Saying, this is what he actually writes here. He says, I'd like to smash your face right now. I really feel like letting you have it. Knock it off or I'll kick your butt. Keep it up and I'll smack you upside your head. This type of stuff. Pushing, grabbing, or hitting, making statements about it, right? This is the actual threats, not actually doing it. But the thing is, my parents were always like that. Very much so. And I've known lots of people in my lifetime who have been like that. And many of my siblings actually took this on because we grew up like this. And two of my siblings actually, I would say, were abusive towards their children. One I know for sure was, because I saw it, but the other one I think was, it's just that they were 2,000 miles away, and I didn't really know what he was doing to his son, but he's an abusive person. My brother is very abusive as well, and so I avoid really mainly most of my family because they're just these dysfunctional, abusive people. They took this on from my parents, and they don't want to make any changes. They don't want to see that was wrong. They think it's okay to bash your kid in, your kid's head in, right? It's like one of my brothers actually, the one who's living, took a hammer to his son. And the thing is, it's like they think that's okay, right? It's like, hey, that's no problem. He deserved it. He was acting up, So my mom, when she bashed my head in with a rolling pin and used to beat my ass, it was okay for her to do that, because I was being a bad kid, right? And, that's wrong, to spill your own child's blood. She spilled my blood on many occasions. And, really heavy-duty beatings. And let me tell you, that's not discipline. That is abuse, right? And so there's so many times people like to think that what they're doing is just, I'm doing the right thing in this situation. It's like, no. We have to get people to change the way that they feel and think about other people. I mean, I would like to venture that my brother would not like to be beaten on with a hammer, and my mom wouldn't like to have her head smashed in with a rolling pin, right? But the thing is that it's okay for them to do that to me or to their own children, right? And that's what I'm saying. This is incredibly wrong, and it's so harsh, It's not right at all. But making these threats, or knock it off, or keep it up, I'll smack you, My mom was like, keep it up and I'll kill you. Right? That's how serious she was. And my dad was quite often threatening us as well, but he was threatening to kill the whole family all the time because he thought we were evil, that we should all be dead, right? But it's really quite harsh what people do to their children. So they might make threats to be harsh or abusive with the children. For instance, they'll say, I'll show those kids what's what when you go to work, things like that. Wait till your mother's not around to protect you, these types of things. And, that's sad when parents do that. They use the kids, they threaten to hurt the children when the other parent isn't there. It's like, wait till you go because I'll teach these kids a lesson type thing, right? And that's a huge threat because the other parent is sitting there, if they care about their children, are sitting there going, oh my God, I can't even go anywhere because what's he going to do to the kids, right? I mean, this is absolutely horrible way for people to grow up. It's just absolutely ridiculous. If you're an abuser, I hope you stop that and get some help. And if you're the victim or the survivor, I hope you will get some help with that as well. Because this happens, and people sometimes like to minimize this stuff and think it's just a joke. Because people can actually survive it. I think if everybody that was abused was killed and murdered, in the flesh and in the physical realm, right? Because they are killed and murdered in their spirits, right? But the whole issue is if they were physically killed, then people would say, oh, yeah, that's a serious issue. But because people survive, I survived the beatings, I survived the verbal abuse. I almost killed myself, right, because of the whole abuse, right? But the thing is I survived. My parents didn't kill me, obviously. I'm 45 years old. They killed me in every other way. I'm a shell. I'm a dead walking person. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole issue. Like, I'm actually learning how to live now. So 3.5 years ago, I was a shell. I was a walking dead. And I talked to a therapist and a friend of mine, a therapist, and she was saying that those people are called the walking dead, really, because they, survivors like myself. She was talking to me personally because I told her, I said I was dead spiritually and in every other way. I was just a physical body walking on the earth, but I really felt dead, at the age of 10. And then all the way throughout my life, And I wanted to let my physical body go too because I felt so internally, spiritually wounded, And she said those are what, therapists and other people, consider to be the walking dead. And there's so many of us on the planet. And the sad thing is I have to sit here and say thank God that I'm still here because, I wanted to take my life really from the age of, I'd say, I got tired of living by the time I was 10. I was really tired, and I was just like, I don't want to live anymore, And then when my friend got killed at the age of 16, I was 15 years old, and she was killed by a drunk driver, and I wanted to go at that point too. See, I didn't want to be here, I was just so tired, and that's what happens to people who are abused. They just get so tired. They're just, it's tired that's not, people don't even understand what it is. And I still, I can say, I can't lie about it. I'm very tired even today. I'm completely exhausted. And, people would say, well, you found a new light and a new joy and you have, this redemption. And, it's so true. And that's what keeps me going. And the whole issue is, I can look at this on the other side now, 3.5 years later, after deciding to live instead of wanting to get out, and deciding to, hey, no, I'm going to fight this thing and I'm going to win. It's so incredibly hard what this stuff does to people, And if you don't get help with it, it can, really seriously ruin your entire life, whether you're the abuser or whether you're the person who's been through it and lived through it and not knowing sure how to go about getting help. For me, this wouldn't be for everybody, I know, because everybody's different, but I didn't trust counselors and therapists, see, so I would never go get help, and I would always confide in people and friends, and quite often at the end of the day be sitting around with thinking about, the time that actually made the difference for me was I was on the couch just sitting there with a screwdriver wanting to self-injure, and then I thought, I just want out of this pain, I want out of this pain, and, I was sitting in my apartment by myself, right, and I realized at that point something stopped me, and I said, why would I want to do that to myself? I've already been hurt and wounded enough. I started to think about the stuff that my parents had done to me, and the things that they had done to each other, and they had completely screwed our family, and I started to think about the pain that we had all been in, and especially myself, looking at it from my own point of view. And I realized, I said, man, if I do this and I hurt myself, all I'm doing is allowing my parents to win this fight, which my mom was passed away 15 years ago, and we never really did reconcile. She's a mean woman, and she was very, very a hateful person, right? And my dad is still living, but he's just mentally ill, so I have no emotional bond. I have no bond with him because he's mentally sick, right? And the abuse that he put on us, just he pushed his children away, pushed his family away, right? It's like, I thought, why would I do this? Hurt myself or end my life? All it would do is let my parents win. They would win this battle then, because they started this battle before I was even born, and they don't care if I kill myself. They don't care if I end my life, and my siblings wouldn't either. As a matter of fact, I know they wouldn't. But one of my siblings would not come to my funeral for sure. I know that if I go before him. And my other sibling would care, but she wouldn't understand. So she would be blaming me like she blames my brothers for ending their lives, right? Because two of my brothers ended their lives. One of my brothers killed himself at the age of 33 after a couple of attempts. He had been trying before at a younger age and didn't make it. And then he finally made it at the age of 33. But he just, I used to talk to him when I was a little kid, and he did not want to be here because he was abused. We all lived in the same home, right? There was 7 siblings, right? We were all treated pretty much the same way. And so, absolutely horrible, what that does to people. It kills them, right? So, my brother took his own life, right? And my other brother actually did too, basically, by doing so many drugs that it killed him after, at the age of 43, he died of a drug overdose in a shelter here in Calgary. And, he had been overdosing his whole life since he was like 12, 13 years old. So, he had been trying to kill himself. He just, he finally made it, right? And the whole thing is I thought, man, if I go that route, all I'm going to do is let my parents win this fight, and I got mad. I was like, oh, my God. I couldn't believe it. I got so angry. I was like, what did they do to me? What did they do to my family? Oh, my God. And I started putting the blame where the blame went, and that was on my parents, because it was their responsibility. The shame and all that lies on their heads, and it had nothing to do with me or my siblings. We were not to blame for this. We shouldn't have had to put up with it. We shouldn't have had to suffer it. We should have gotten help. We should have been allowed to get help as children because the courts, ordered court-ordered counseling. My parents didn't follow through with it. And because of the abuse, right, my brother was at school, and the teacher saw the bruises, and the police got involved. And, it's absolutely horrible what people will do, to their children. And to themselves, to their, so it was horrible watching my parents fight and destroy each other. It was absolutely horrific. So if you've been through this, you really deserved so much better, right? And excuse me, if you actually are living in this right now, you deserve so much better. No one deserves to be treated this way. And so in saying that, I can't be the abuser then because I was abused, and I can't go and hurt somebody and say, oh, well, I hurt people because I was abused. That is so pathetic, because that's what my mom did to me. That's what my mom did to my family. That's what my dad did to us, because they were both abused as children. So they went and took their abusive garbage, because they were abused, out on each other and out on us because they were abused. So really, honestly, we cannot be abusers, right? We have to know what we're doing, and stop abusing ourselves and stop abusing other people, and have a good life, have a decent life, And because we sure deserve it, I tell you that. We did not deserve to be treated that way, and nobody does. And I don't care, I have people actually tell me stuff like, oh yeah, life is about abuse, and that's what it's all about. And it's because there's psychologically something wrong with those people. Because we all know what love is, and we know what goodness is. We know what mercy is, and kindness, and compassion, and helping people, and being good to your children, and telling them that you love them, and that you would never hurt them, and that if you did hurt them, you would apologize, and you'd be like, I'm so sorry. And and that you would be a family unit instead of this stupid warring machine, And this is the whole issue. It's everyone's responsibility, right? It's all of our responsibility to be responsible for our behavior, right? But and also for our lives. We can't blame. I can't say, well, my life is so miserable because of what my parents did to me. No, my life is my life, and I need to live it. And what I have to do is get past and get over and work through what happened to me as a child, and then learn to accept myself for who I am, and learn to love myself, which is what I'm on right now, the beginning sort of stages of this whole thing, right? Learning how to self-nurture, learning how to love myself, learning that I did not deserve what I had gone through, and also learning to assert myself instead of being abusive to other people just because I don't know any other way to handle things, right? And so I'm just sort of working through it, right? But that's what we have to do. So reach out and get some help, whatever you have to do, whether it's getting a counselor, therapist, group support, online group support, which I like because you can remain anonymous, and you don't have to, you can just be at home, and you can, if you need help, or you just want to talk to somebody, or have an ear to listen to, or or just be a listener for somebody else too, right? Support somebody else in their healing journey. I like that online group support, I really do. But whatever works for you, because we're all different, right? So whatever you do, make sure you get some help with this. So we'll continue looking at this tomorrow, and we'll finish this off. We haven't even got to the physical stuff yet. It's absolutely crazy. But the psychological abuse is coming up next, and then the physical portion. So I hope you will check this out. You can read it yourself. www.angerresources.com, ANGERESOURCES.com. And this particular article is Define Domestic Abuse, and it's from Dave Decker. So I hope you will go check it out. There's a whole lot left to it. So we'll finish it off tomorrow, and then take a look at some other stuff there. And have a great day, everybody. Make sure you do reach out and get some help. If you need something, you can contact me on Facebook or Blog Talk Radio here. Leave me a message. Excuse me. Tonight I'll be on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Elizabeth Brawley. We'll be talking about the child abuse headlines, because we're going to keep bringing them out until there are no more. I hope we can do that very soon, because I'd like to not have to do that. Those headlines upset me very much. And so, but we're going to talk about it, because that's what we're doing, right? We're raising awareness. We're not minimizing abuse, and we're not hiding behind a bunch of garbage saying, oh, abuse doesn't exist. We know full well it does. And, this is ridiculous. Kids are losing their lives right now. So I hope you will tune into that. That's 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time at www.blogtalkradio.com /Dreamcatchers. So that's 10 o'clock tonight Eastern Standard Time. So have a great day, everybody. I hope you will take care of yourselves. Oh, my God. I was not taken care of as a child, and it really takes almost everything I have to take care of myself here now as an adult. But I've now learned how to not hurt myself, right? So I hope that you will do the same thing and take good care of yourselves, okay? Talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.